My beautiful and talented wife cooked all that, and the quiches I will test too because I'm the official tester, and they are amazing. The cookies are amazing. She's very good at all of that. And there's drinks here brought by the family. Please participate. If you don't, it's got to be hauled away, so do that. So make yourself comfortable, and we're going to begin in exactly 5 minutes. I'm going to watch over and make sure you're eating. Hello, everybody. It's a little past 9:30. That's about the time that we expected. I see you all hiding in the shade, and I know that that's exactly where you should be. But we put the bench over here, so we're going to be speaking from this location. And I want to welcome all the friends and the family of Gene Paleno. And I want to give some thanks to the people who made this possible, because we're here to dedicate a park bench. And a park bench is kind of special because it commemorates something important for a county or for a district, that sort of thing. But the entire county came together and donated the bench itself, and then we took collections and had it engraved. Now, we were wanted to put down some of the things that Gene Paleno stood for on the bench so that everyone could see how important a person he was. The problem is that there wasn't enough space on the bench, so we had to make it pretty rather than complete. So it has a few things that he's accomplished here in Lake County, and I just want to tell you about a couple of them, and I want to tell a short story that maybe some folks haven't heard. And then we'll do some introductions, and we'll have some other speakers, and then we'll unveil the bench. Gene Paleno and I met in the Civil War Roundtable. So the 150th anniversary of the Civil War. So my wife and I attended this. There was quite a few people there. It was in Upper Lake at the Tallman Hotel, which itself is a historical restored relic. And we all felt that we were relics as well. And there was a couple of really strong historians who gave presentations, one from the South and one representing the North. And they led the show, and then individuals within the group would get up and make presentations as well. So every month of that month, 150 years earlier, there were events that were portrayed, and they made presentations. And we did this for 4 years. We had Antebellum before the war to talk about how we got to that point, which, by the way, looks very similar to some of the rhetoric today, I dare say. There was a lot of strong rhetoric. And finally, the whole thing just broke down, and there started a war. It lasted 4 years. And then finally, at the end, we covered some of the post-war events. And we were going to go into World War I. That's how important everybody felt what we were doing was to them. And the steam kind of came out of it because after 4 years, what else are you really going to match? World War I didn't interest folks that much. But I got to know Gene. And Gene is absolute tour de force. He took and soaked up everything he heard. And he would get into conversation, every conversation that they had, he knew about it for that month. And there would be a give and take. Other people would try to participate, but they didn't shine like Gene. But this guy is a real amazing person. And so we pushed Gene to actually be more involved, because everybody wanted Gene there. He is a tremendous personality. Now, I became county supervisor, and some of the things that I knew I needed to do for this particular district that we're in, standing here, was try to get the people to come together and provide a voice to the county supervisor so that you could understand what they need and maybe guide any resources that were available in a certain direction. So I pulled together what is called the Municipal Advisory Councils. There's a point in law that allows counties to do that. And we call them town halls because that's more folksy, and that's what we'd been calling them. And every month I'd pull together a town hall, and I would get certain people, but I wouldn't get the general town. So we developed 3 of them, 3 districts. One here in Upper Lake, And I needed a voice for the Upper Lake District and try to pull the townspeople together. Gene, would you like to be the person that chairs this and maybe get some people interested? Claudine Pedroselli, raise your hand. She's on that board. Tim, did I see you? Tim's back here. He's the chair now. These are people that are on the board today. Gene captured the essence. He listened to what I had to say. He captured the essence of what we were trying to do. He ran the meeting like he was 6 people. If he didn't like what somebody was saying, okay, you're out of order, and he would slam a gavel down. And that would be the end of that discussion for that particular person who was out of order. Perfect sense. A guy behind me, while I was sitting there off to the side, I was amused by everything that was going on. He says, he's not listening. I says, no, he heard. He doesn't want to hear somebody who's out of order. He's following a script. We organized this in Gene's honor. Gene is a biker at heart, by the way. I mean, he's really a rebel, and he's also the leader of the pack. So with Gene, that was the kind of strength that he brought to those meetings. And of the 3 districts, the strongest one has always been the Upper Lake group. And the others have kind of worked their way forward. But this one just started in front. All of the issues were on the table because of Gene. Now, Gene has got some accomplishments for the county. He was awarded, I should start back. He and I and a few other seniors came together and started talking about the plight of the seniors in the county. There's a lot of senior programs, but the senior programs didn't exactly meet the seniors that we had today. So as seniors changed, the programs didn't. And the funding kind of fades out, and then there has to be a big groundswell to get more funding. So that doesn't really work when you have the funding and there are seniors. Why don't you just figure the gaps out and then try to do something with that? So we pulled together what we call the Lake County Silver Foundation, and one of the founding members was Gene. So he was the vice chair, and he just absolutely loved that position. So he was the one that basically carried, in second command kind of thing. He was a very hard pusher. He was a hard follower, a hard pusher, and a real believer. So Lake County Silver Foundation pulled together an annual event for seniors where you recognize the accomplishments of seniors, give them a free lunch, and then we would set up all of these different services that were available in Lake County. You didn't know about this, and those people are here today. Please go over there and look at their booth and that sort of thing. We've done 4 of those. There were amazing attendance, and Gene was at all of them, and there was a popular push from the group to recognize Gene as a senior in action, and he was one of the first recipients of the very foundation that he helped bring about. But the seniors themselves said, if we're going to get an award, that's the person that should also get an award, and so he got one of the first. So he has a recognition plaque in his honor from the very foundation. He went on to become the Senior of the Year for the Stars of Lake County Awards. Now, that's where 20 or so people are recognized for their contributions around the county, and people go to the Sopal Reef for that recognition. Gene was recognized as Senior of the Year, and the only time that I have seen anyone receive the Stars Award, and when he was leaving the stage, the entire house, to a person, stood with the longest ovation that you could imagine. Mike Thompson, our congressman, was there, and he says, "Who is that guy?" He's our Gene. Gene's an author. He wrote books. If you're interested, people ask about the books. We brought some here. And he wrote The Porter Conspiracy. He learned about General Porter during the Civil War Roundtable. It was a miscarriage of justice where they drummed General Porter out as an scapegoat. And so he found all of the court-martial proceedings and the exoneration proceedings and all of the surrounding history of the Battle of Manassas or Bull Run, depending on whether you're from the north or south. He found all of that information and wrote this book. It's not just a history book. You read this book and you're there. If we wrote history books like this for kids in school, then they'd enjoy history. He's an amazing author. He wrote about, which we don't have, he wrote about the history of Lake County. Did we bring history of Lake County? We do. We do have history of Lake County. History of Lake County is a mythical adventure in time. And yes, it is. It goes back to the days of the Indians, the terrible things that sort of happened as far as the Indians are concerned, and it really did, and how it came forward to today. We've misused this county. We're starting to find our conscience, and it's because of people like Gene. So with that, he earns the bench. He's got the engraving on the bench, but it's the family that basically stood behind Gino and allowed him to be the person that he is. And they're here today to help with that dedication. And so I would like the family member that's going to represent Christina, I think, or Dolly. Dolly's coming up, and she's going to speak. And I want you to introduce yourself and your family members so that people can recognize the important people behind Gene Paleno.
I'll do that. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim. That was incredible. So I will introduce the family members. And I'd like them to stand up. We've got Christina, Gino, Virginia, and Dolly, and we are his 4 children, and Ellery, my son. Thank you. So first of all, I really want to welcome everybody that came out today. We've got Supervisor Crandall and former Supervisor Jim Steele, and we've got the hospice group, and we've got friends and family, and the advisory council folks, and so many more. And I'm sorry if I didn't name you, but thank you, Jim and Olga, for being the lead people, and Christina putting this together. I'm just going to say a few brief words about my dad. We always knew my dad, Gene Paleno, was smart. He had a good answer for any question I would ask him. When I was a kid, he worked at Douglas Aircraft. We've got a little pictorial history that shows him with a little airplane up in the corner. That was in Los Angeles, where we all grew up. He had gone to Paris to represent Douglas Aircraft. My dad left Los Angeles when I was 11 to work in Chicago for a few years. There he met and married his second wife, the love of his life, Jeanette Scobie. He returned to LA with her when I was 15, and I had the joy of living with them for part of my high school years. In fact, they drove me to college at Sonoma State in the 70s. Okay, after dropping me off, he took a ride in Lake County, and he discovered Bachelor Valley Road in your beautiful county. And within a few years, he sold everything in LA and built an incredible house on Bachelor Valley Road, where he and Jeanette lived a full lifetime together. He had many accomplishments here. He got into detailed ceramic cars, which they sold at Macy's and other stores. His cars are on display currently at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles on Wilshire Boulevard. It's a famous museum. He got into writing. His entertaining and beloved weekly articles went from local newspapers to 7 states. Well past age 75, Gene wrote a number of excellent books, which includes The History of Lake County, Border Conspiracy, the Cleo book, and a couple of incredible, humorous science fiction books. Also, late in life, he became the chair of the Western Region Municipal Advisory Council. He enjoyed, after Jeanette passed, he was supportive and benefited greatly from the hospice group. So many more. He helped with the Silver Foundation with Jim and Olga to get that started. Gene lived a memorable life, always letting others feel listened to and important. We lost him at age 95 2 years ago. I thank him for longevity and for the many friends he introduced me to. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I just want to say that
my most memorable time with Daddy was breakfast at Judy's Junction. Just he and I, early in the morning, and he was the essence of Lake County, friendly. He'd greet a stranger, hello friend. I thought it was cute. But thank you to Lake County for every way you made his life better.
You know, I just want to say that my dad was a great historian, and I learned a lot from him. And he passed on a lot of talent to his kids, his grandkids, and his great-grandchildren. And I appreciate him for that. And he shared his talent with everybody, gave a lot to people, tried to make them happy and write things that inspire their lives. And I'm proud of him for that. And I'm proud to be his son, and thank you all for being here and the nice thing that you're doing for him and his memory, and that's just priceless. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Virginia. I'm Gene's eldest daughter, so I think I've known him longer than anybody. He always was, to me, the inspiration of positivity. He had suffered depression when he was young, and after the divorce and that, he was still trying to find his way, and when he met Jeanette, he started to blossom by writing books. As you can see by the letter he wrote in 1940, he loved to tell stories. He liked to write from a very early age. He was extremely artistic and gifted. My mother told me a little story that after he had gotten college out of the way and became a teacher, during his studies or whenever he started his education, they had given him an IQ test. She said his IQ was over 200, immeasurable. And she said he could have done many, many things in his life, but he, at the time, was young and started a family. He didn't begin to blossom until his last couple decades in his life. When we were young, he told a lot of stories. I thought these were stories that every kid heard. He told us a story about the Doodaloons. I don't even remember the whole story, but I'm sure our family will discuss it. And I don't remember where the Doodaloons came from or how we got that, but I thought every kid knew about Doodaloons. There was another story he told about people who were sitting around a campfire on a dark night, and he told the story of the man with the golden arm. And at the end of the story, we all burst out in complete surprise at the ending when the man of the golden arm was coming to get us. And these were incredible times, and I thank him for all the creativity he's blessed upon me. For his great genes. And I appreciate everybody's love for him. And it's true that what you give out, you give back. And he was a perfect example of that. Thank you.
So now I want to make sure everybody understands the tremendous contribution that one of our board members has made to these kind of events, and that's Mr. Sam Euston right here. He pulls all this stuff together for us. So thank you, Sam. And I want to recognize our county supervisor, Supervisor Crandall for this district. Raise your hand there, PJ. So he's an amazing representative of everybody in the 3rd district. We have, I just had a mental senior.
Tom Azevedo.
Oh, it's Tom Azevedo from Worth. Where are you, Tom? Right there, back here. Thank you. This is one of the town halls. Please come over to represent that. Tim, where are you? You left. Oh, Tim's right there. Tim, do you want to say something? In fact, I want you to say something.
I thought I might have to, but I wasn't.
All right.
Hopefully I can do the job.
Okay.
There it is, man. This is your turn. You're welcome.
Hello, everyone. Well, I met Gene.
About 27.
Yeah, 2017. A friend of mine that I knew in the church I attended in San Francisco, Margaret Sanders, she got on the board, and she said, "You should do it too." And I said, "Why?" So anyway, I asked to be included, and I was accepted onto the Municipal Advisory Council. And there was Gene. I thought, who's this guy? And so over the next couple of years, I found out who he was. And, a man of accomplishment and vision and compassion. And he, as you know, he's been an inspiration to just about all of us. And I've been blessed to know him. Thank you.
Okay, I was asked about Cleo. So I want to tell you about Cleo. Now, this is actually, he used to write for the newspaper about his cat. And those newspaper articles then was published in this book. Cleo looks just like that. In fact, Cleo was more human than some humans I know. She would basically know what you were doing, and she would actually get up there to tell you what you should be doing. Now, the reason I know this is when second representation is when Gene passed, Cleo became available, and the family wanted us to take her. Cleo is a female, and she's a Maine Coon. So a Maine Coon is a very special large cat, and they have just tremendous traits. They get to know you, they decide who they like and who they don't like, they decide what they want to do, where they want to be, and they kind of let you know how they want to run their life. And so that's the way you're going to organize what you do. Well, Cleo, I could see where he got his material about Cleo, because this cat is worth writing about, and he could do it. So these are very special articles. Cleo passed. It turns out that Maine Coon, about 30% of the population, have a genetic disorder, and it shortens their life. It's a cardiomyopathy that shortens their life to about 8 years. So fortunately, Cleo passed after Gene, as I would have hated for that to happen the other way around. The special animal. So we have a couple of books here if anybody wants those. They were asked about. And I wanted to know if our county supervisor would like to come up and say a couple of words.
I really appreciate that. I have a lot to talk about for Gene. For 2017, 2018 is about the amount of time I knew Gene. However, he was so impactful. I mean, there's so much I had to endure with him. One of the things, the first things that I learned about was, his writing. And I knew he was Worth's chair, but I didn't know about the writing because I wasn't plugged in that way just yet. And so he came and visited me in my campaign office in Lucerne, and he's like, I need to get an article on you. I'm like, or not article, I need to do an interview on you because I need to know what you're about here. I'm like, okay. So what I enjoyed about that is he asked me a series of questions, but he was curt, but professional and tactful. But I appreciate that. He's like, no, I'm not asking about that. Get back to this. And I was like, okay. And so I knew right there the force, the force in Gene and how he conducted himself. Further down the line, we would have, we tried every month, but sometimes it'd be quarterly or bi-monthly, breakfast at Judy's Junction, where he would give me the lowdown and kind of like a list. And I felt like more of a prime minister than than anything. And the reason I know about dealing with that is because with elders, it's the same thing when I was the chair of the tribe. my Aunt Bernadine, who's here, I had to do the same with her. If you don't contact or talk with them, they're going to find you and make it known. And they're going to get everybody to understand, like, hey, he's not calling me. Get a hold of him. And then all of a sudden, then you got to take a tongue licking at wherever it is in front of everybody. So I knew I got to keep up with him. The biggest thing that I really loved about Gene was in the town halls, just the Dollar General situation. I think everybody knows about that. And he really did a good job getting everybody together, his email lists, getting everybody to come to the meeting and talk about how they, what their thoughts were on it. And it really played a part in staving them off because they were trying to, I think it was the hotels over there, it's just a little down where they were trying to build another Dollar General in our district. And he's like, we are not having that. And so yeah, Gene played a big part in that. He was really instrumental for town halls. And the reason I say that is because I didn't really have to worry about work at that time. I have a couple others. One of them is still kind of a really building, and it's been there for the same amount of time since Jim established them. So with that one constantly running without having to worry so much about it because of Gene's, his attentiveness and everything like that. Plus, he always talked about Dolly and how she was a part of the MAC over in Mendocino County. So he relayed a lot of that information over and said, this is how you do it. So just always remember those times. Appreciate Gene. He came to the Board of Supervisors meetings and always got us up to par and put us in our place. And but you need that. And it gives other people an example. Talked about World War II a little bit, but most World War II veterans don't get into a lot of that. But we shared that in common about veterans. So we'll miss Gene. I knew he would have kept going as the chair if he would have kept going. He would have kept going until he was 100. He just needed something to keep going. So love that guy, respect that man. I appreciated him giving us the stories about the Bloody Island Massacre and how that came to be. I told him that I'm an ancestor of that, of the survivors, and just always enjoyed how he told the story to people when we had the New Paradigm and other places. He would sit down and read the story to everybody, and it was just encapsulating. So again, to the family, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to be a part of this. I'm so glad we were able to do this. Jim's been in the Silver Foundation has been trying to do this for quite some time. I'm glad we're able to do it, and glad to be here in his honor.
We've got a hot mic in case anybody wants to come up and say anything, please. And then we're going to have the unveiling of the bench as soon as we're through all describing Gene. And I'd like to have my wife, who is on the Silver Foundation, come up and make the presentation, and it will be for the family member to actually take the unveiling. So I'll give the advance warning. So first she heard of it. This is how I get anything done.
If your wife said it. Hi, I'm short. Hi, I'm Carolyn Jarrett. I know Gene from being in a hospice grief group that we were in together, and we were in that group for quite a while. And I have to say, I have to say that Gene was always the consummate gentleman. He was just so respectful of other people's feelings and always so incredibly positive about being there. And he would always tell us about the fact that when he felt down, what he would do is he would pick up the phone and he would call somebody. And he said, when I would call somebody and start talking to them and start listening to them and seeing what their life was like and what their issues were, and start sharing with them and listening to them. In other words, he would reach out to somebody to share, and he said, and it would sort of lift the burden off of me. And that's really the way he was, and he was always so other person oriented, and it was just such a wonderful thing to have him in the group, and he really added so much to all of us, and it was just such a pleasure knowing him, and he was such a comfort to us all, and I just really appreciated knowing him He reminded me so much of my own dad, and I have to tell you the truth that in that way that it's another generation of what it is to be a man. I think that sort of respectful, like I say, gentleman type of demeanor. But anyway, I really respected and loved Gene, and I felt grateful that I knew him. So I'm really happy that this is finally coming to fruition. So thank you very much, Gene, for all that you've given us.
Mike, okay, I'm not seeing anybody moving, so, yes.
I just
Come over here, come over, Claudine, you're,
I'll be glad if I can.
go ahead.
I just want to check in with Gene's compassionate side, and it has been a pleasure to be on the Civil Foundation, which Olga and Jim created. And within that, we were doing some brainstorming one time, and so I said something about, what about seniors and pets? And Gene just, he just got on it in a moment. And that's where Olga, Ray, Evie, Carl, Gene, and I went to the 100 Women Strong. And I was like a little, looking at all these women. And I knew that I presented the kind of the nuts and bolts of everything. Ray said a few words, and then it was a time thing. So then Gene took over, and he just stepped right up, and he talked about Cleo, he talked about all sorts of animals and his compassion. And his picture of he and Cleo are on our pamphlet, our application form. And he also blessed the Upper Lake Senior Center. He would come many times and do readings, and especially at Christmas. He had this commanding voice, and I just felt like a little kid listening to, Christmas tales. And so he's very, very missed, and his legacy will be honored forever. So, hooray for Gene!
I just want to note, I see Paul Branson standing back there. Paul, raise your hand. He's on the Lake Links Board of Directors as well. And Paul is the one that is pulling together rides for seniors in the county. And you have some brochures about that? Oh, and she has brochures about it. If you're a senior and you want someone else to shepherd you around, several programs are now available due to people like Paul Branson. So thank you, Paul. If I could get my wife to come up. Now notice something about this. This is a clever little place this bench is sitting. It's looking at the cornhole competition. It's also looking at the kids play in the background. And where else would you have Gene Paleno sit? While people are having dinner over here and enjoying picnics, over here playing games, and children over there in the yard. I could just see him sitting here and taking notes. So with that, we're going to do the unveiling of this bench. And you can say anything you wish. You're in charge.
So much has been said about Gene, so I want to be sure that I get to say something that Gene did that maybe a lot of you don't know about. In addition to the 100 Women Strong comment from Claudine, if any of you have been before these 100 Strong women, you're timed. And when you're done, they do the gong, and you stop. Well, Gene Paleno, the only person ever to be allowed to go past the gong. And we won $14,000 thanks to Gene Paleno, and that's where the Senior Pet Project came from. The other thing is that with Jim, I met him at the Civil War Roundtable, and the first thing I thought of, we got to get you on radio. So at the time I was doing a program, News from the Past, with my friend Linda Lake, and I brought him on radio, and he was on radio a lot, and he donated some of his books that we used during our fundraisers, and there are just so many facets of this guy. I'm sure we've missed something, but I wanted to let you know that he also was on community radio quite a bit with us, and did his stories, so loved. Anyway, now, surprise, surprise, I get to do the unveiling. I'm not a cat person, but I so fell in love with Cleo. And I can't talk about the Cleo because I can't do it without breaking down. But thank you, Gene, for Cleo. And Cleo's on the bench.
Just have your family members take that off. Yeah, just take that off and everybody can sit. There you go. Everybody grabs. All right. Some applause. Okay. Isn't that a sweet deal? Now come up and look this and read at it and look at the face of Cleo because it captures the cat perfectly. You can read it.
Little tired.
Right.
Was it? Good. So bad I couldn't go to nap for the talk.
Okay, so they just read it, but I'm going to read it so everybody can hear it. Cleo is looking on, approving of what we did here. And the family, thank you to the family for putting the words together. A Lake County star, which indeed he was, Gene Paleno, 1926 to 2021. The only thing we will be remembered for when we leave this small blue planet is what we have done for other people. Founding member, Lake County Silver Foundation. Chair, Lake County West Region Town Hall. Inspirational Senior Award 2018, Lake County Senior Summit. Senior of the Year 2019, Stars of Lake County. Veteran of World War II, American Campaign, United States Navy. Beloved author, Lake County History, The Porter Conspiracy, and Cleo Chronicles.
Thank you so much.
Watching things from the beginning when they're proposed to the time when you finally get some action is like watching grass grow. But to see it finally happen, as we have in a couple of things we've done, is the best feeling in the world. And the knowledge I'm doing something for other people, especially older folks like myself, gives me a good feeling. I have to fall back on something I've said before to other people, and I try to practice it myself. The only thing that we'll be remembered for when we leave the small blue planet and spaces when we're gone is what we've done for other people.